Mahito is back, Dabura just unlocked domain expansion, Tsurugi was blessed with some of the best writing in the series, and a sequel to JJK Modulo is already being set up. Yeah, there was literally never a better time than now to be a JJK fan. I've actually decided to do this big, in-depth review of Modulo Chapter 21 on my main channel instead of my second review channel, because this chapter is way more important and well written than a lot of you people realize. So, as always, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's get into this peak fiction JJK chapter. So the chapter begins with a continuation of Tsurugi and Maki's flashback that we saw all the way back in chapter 1 of the series, where Maki says that loss can make you stronger. Now here we see Maki saying that even though Mai's death did make her strong, she questions if she even needed to become strong at all, and wonders if things would have still found a way to work themselves out for the better had she not. And then she started tearing up, and then Tsurugi started tearing up, and then I started tearing. Oh, it was just a whole thing. Now, the first nice detail I noticed is that we can see the same visual of geese flying overhead as shown during Mai and Maki's last conversation in the original series. However, this time the two geese that were falling behind are not there anymore. Now, I don't know if this is like Gege's genius writing strategy or if Shueisha encouraged this type of writing or what, but just like when Season 2 of JJK was releasing at the same time as Gojo vs Sukuna, the content of these modulo chapters make what we are currently watching in JJK Season 3 hit so much harder. I mean, reading this chapter, having just watched Maki's episode, and also seeing Yuji's Cog speech, knowing what actually becomes of him in Modulo, leads to both series just being massively elevated. These are just the fun little details and like gimmicks that I noticed though, and they're really nothing compared to what this peak cinema writing actually represents. It all ties back into Gojo's dream, and all the themes of isolation, strength, and just letting the youth live their lives that ran throughout Jujutsu Kaisen, but it also ties into what we already know about Yuta and Maki's son, Iori. You see, Iori kind of had this like old school sorcerer mindset and seemed to be resentful because the new generation were growing weaker and weaker. So when Yuji told him it doesn't matter, I assume what he meant by this is him just saying that it doesn't matter, people are weak. Remember that this stuff like works in a cycle, yeah? When curse spirits get stronger, sorcerers tend to get stronger in response. So sorcerers being weak is a sign that the burden of curses in Japan is lighter than it otherwise would be. Maki and Yuji, who should now be considered old-gen sorcerers, share the common opinion that striving for strength simply isn't worth it because strength comes hand in hand with loss and loneliness. As a kid, Maki was actually a lot like her son Iori. She sought out strength so that she could fix all the problems with the world herself, which is demonstrated very well all the way back in JJK 0 when she actually rejects Yuta's help in obliterating the Zenin clan because she felt she had to do it alone for some reason. Now, all these years later, with all the experience, she's finally started to understand what Gojo was going on about the whole time. Strength comes with loss, and seeking that strength all by yourself while shouldering that burden is just lonely. It is not worth it. Even just the fact that Maki questions if everything might have worked out had she not awakened and massacred the Zenin clan shows a level of acceptance that it's better to be weak and together rather than to be strong and alone. What I like about Modulo personally is that we actually skip a generation, and Maki is now teaching this to Tsurugi, who takes it on board and actually learns from it. You see, Gojo's dream was always something that myself and a lot of others seemed to think would instantly become a reality after JJK ended, but that's just not an accurate representation of progress. Real progress is slow. It's generational, which is why Iori struggled to grasp it, but why Tsurugi is now succeeding. And damn, all of that from like not even 2 pages? Yeah, I mean, I told you guys I was going deep with this one, alright? Prepare for a hella yap fest. Anyway, we then cut back to the present and see that despite Tsurugi now gaining the means to kill Maru, he changed his mind at the very last second and dropped his weapon. Unfortunately, this meant he was sliced across the chest by Maru's counterattack and then fell directly into Maru's arms. Yeah, he did exactly what Maki said she wished she did. He spared Maru's life simply because he cares for Maru and didn't want to take on the burden of loss. I mean, after all, there must be a point to killing, and there was simply no point in taking Maru's life. I mean, I think it's clear at this point that Maru and Tsurugi are pretty much the same. I wouldn't be surprised if we get hit with one of the classic I am you Gege moments for those guys soon, because it definitely does apply to them. This duel didn't even really have any real stakes. There was no actual purpose besides the two of them expressing their mutual respect and acknowledgement for each other in the only way that either of them knew how, as warriors. Now, seeing Tsurugi do this immediately makes Maru question literally everything. The dude just has a straight-up existential crisis. But after some off-screen shenanigans, Maru seems to have found a solution. More on that in a bit though, because Gege structured this chapter kinda weird for dramatic effect reasons. I assume we'll get a flashback filling in the gaps later, but yeah. I also don't think that Tsurugi is dead here, or at least I don't think he will die, especially given the end of the chapter. But I still really like the visual of Rika Orimoto's ghost watching over Tsurugi in a very nice parallel to Jujutsu Kaisen 0. In fact, this whole series is just like parallelception. Tsurugi and Yuka obviously parallel Maru and Cross, with Maru and Tsurugi being the protective warriors, and with the other two being, well, yeah. Interestingly enough though, Cross actually seems more similar to Tsurugi and Maru seems more similar to Yuka personality-wise, yet they still have contrasting roles. And then obviously, Yuka is also Yuta's counterpart. I mean, she looks just like him, and just like Yuta in JJK 0, she's now offering her own life in exchange for winning the duel. Whether that be directly in a binding vow, or simply in the act of summoning Mahoraga is completely irrelevant because the outcome is the same. Her life in exchange for everybody else's survival. And as I've already discussed in a lot of depth, Tsurugi is very clearly Maki's counterpart. Anyway, we then see a Callion on the now knocked spaceship, but before this can get expanded on, we then cut to Dabura versus Mahoraga, which honestly is just as exciting and important as the rest of the chapter. Okay, first things first, screw you. Bruv, not too long ago, everyone was getting on my case about even thinking of using the words sukuna level threat to describe Dabura. Bruv, we are now having legitimate conversations about Dabura being blatantly stronger than Sukuna. This dude has most definitely reached the bare minimum of Sukuna level threat. I think he's earned that. Anyway, I don't want to turn this into a power scaling video, so I will just get to the point. Dabura summons a dark, truth-seeker-looking orb using curse technique reversal, and for some reason, this seems to have resulted in a giant vortex to have been created around Dabura, who is also now levitating for some reason. I low-key think this is just hype moments and aura instead of his actual power, but whatever. Mahoraga then gets an absolutely, like damn, that is so cool, bro. It gets an awesome page where he low-key hits the Honored One pose and the wheel spins. Dabura sees this and questions what the hell Mahoraga has just adapted to since he hasn't even used his new ability yet, and at first he questions if Mahoraga has adapted to his cursed energy as a whole, which obviously isn't the case, but then he concludes that Mahoraga is adapting to existence itself. Actually, one translation says my existence, as in Dabura's existence, but another translation says existence itself. I'll be honest, if Mahoraga has actually reached the point where he's adapting to his opponent's existence, then I just don't even know anymore. The only two things I can think of, kind of, were this. Either Dabura is completely wrong because he doesn't know that Mahoraga's wheel does spin periodically after taking the first hit of an attack because it adapts over time. Or Mahoraga is just adapting to existence in that he's literally turning himself into a conscious character. This thought only came to me because of what Dabura says next, which is that Mahoraga is the only thing he's ever met quieter than him, who he could metaphorically sit down and talk to. If Mahoraga's ability to adapt leads him to adapting to the manga and becoming a literal character that can speak, I am going to have a heart attack and die from too much peak. But realistically, I have no idea. So Dabura talks about placing a barrier around his curse technique reversal in order to guarantee that he hits Mahoraga, and he says this as if it's actually something he already knows about. Like, I could be wrong, but the wording, "Do you guys have this technique on Earth too?" paired with him coming to the natural conclusion that he should enclose it in a domain barrier, kind of suggests that he had knowledge of domain expansions, even if this is his first time actually doing one. I mean, I guess he would have absolutely no need for a domain before this, so it does make sense. The domain itself looks insanely dope, and again, there are multiple translations that I've seen, but the one that I really want to focus on is TCB's translation that calls it a far realm of deadly light and living darkness, inverted pathway. Okay, besides looking and sounding dope, this is actually very interesting because it potentially confirms my theory about Dabura's reversal technique not being what we initially thought. Now, from my understanding, Dabura has one technique with two parts, light and the ability to grant mass to killing intent, or something like that. I mean, light on its own, in its raw form, just shouldn't really do any damage, which means Dabura is basically applying killing intent and mass to the light, which by extension does mean that they must be two parts of the same technique instead of being two completely separate curse techniques, because you cannot use two separate curse techniques at the same time. My theory was that Dabura's curse technique reversal is actually going to reverse the killing intent aspects of the technique as well as the light aspect, to result in some kind of life-related ability. It could still have offensive uses, but I like the idea that he could potentially use it to do something like revive Yuka should he successfully, exercise Mahoraga in the domain. We can kind of get the best of both worlds. He beats Mahoraga and Yuka survives. The Deadly Light and Living Darkness name is what convinced me of this. I think it's a little bit too coincidental. Where we go from here though, or how we use it, or what the domain even does is beyond me. I don't know. I just thought that detail was pretty cool. But yeah, Dabura might be the key to actually ensuring Yuka's survival. It could even heal her cancer, who knows? In terms of the domain itself though, somebody on Reddit actually made a really interesting post about how it resembles something called the Podgaric Monument. At least I think that's how you pronounce it. I don't know, man, I've never seen this thing before in my life. Leave me alone. I'm gonna put the post on screen for a bit so you can just read it, but the idea is that the monument is inspired by the Greek god Nika. Yeah, not Nika, like, it's not like One Piece, it's like Nike, whatever. But yeah, this Greek god was known for his speed and peak athleticism, which obviously plays into, Dabura's whole light speed shtick, which is pretty dope. And the name translates to victory, and there's a lot more. Just read it, I don't know. Anyway, let's move on to the final part of the video. So the chapter then does this weird mini time skip jump cut to Maru and Yuji, who supposedly just met off screen, which is actually how I think Tsurugi survived. Yuji probably pulled up and healed him, or something like that, and then Maru's technique drew Yuji into this soul realm place, or whatever. I don't know, we'll find out soon, probably. Now, I actually think the place they end up in is in some way related to the theme of Dabura's abilities, because it seems to literally be divided into two different paths. The light path with the Kallion and the dark path with Mahito. That's right, Yuji and Maru find themselves in front of the longest living Kallion that we previously saw sat on the Naonok spaceship, which is definitely not where we are now. At least it looks nothing like it, and I don't know why their ship would have a curtain leading to Mahito. Now for one of my favourite parts of the whole chapter. Yuji goes over and pets the Kallion very, very compassionately, and it's such a simple moment that really means a lot more than you people would think, because, as Yuji should probably say in this moment, he is the Kallion. They are literally one and the same. They can understand each other like nobody else can. Both of them are the current longest living things of their species, and they both resemble something that is very similar yet different to a cursed spirit. It's just a very wholesome interaction of like mutual understanding. Now Maru says his technique selected both Yuji and a certain patch-faced person as keys of sorts that will help him achieve his newfound goal of bringing harmony by stopping the birth of cursed spirits forever. And just like that, in one single panel, Jujutsu Kaisen finally comes full circle. The theme of eliminating cursed spirits from the world felt like it was the overarching end goal of Jujutsu Kaisen, so my dissatisfaction with the ending mainly came from this never really being addressed. But here we are, finally, talking about how we are going to achieve Geto and Yuki's dreams once and for all. Speaking of Yuki Tsukumo, Yuji then whips out her soul book from JJK 0 that he apparently just, keeps on his person at all times. He hands it over to Maru and says that eliminating cursed spirits was something his older brother's teacher dedicated her life to achieving. And with literally no hesitation or even thought, Yuji just says, "I'm in," which I really like, to be honest. It felt very Yuji, because, he doesn't tend to overthink things. Oh, by the way, I should mention that Yuji actually learnt about the Kallion situation and their existence from Todo, who seems to be the only person left in Yuji's old life that he actually still talks to, which is pretty interesting. And there's just something really funny about Yuji describing Todo as a cheerful guy with a funny instrument for a hand. Just like, look at Maru's blank face as he says that. He's such a little guy. I love him. He honestly reminds me of young Yuji, like a lot. Maru then takes Yuji into the dark side of the soul realm, and being the absolute nonchalant king he is now, Yuji just laughs when he sees Mahito sitting there. Mahito has a brief moment of celebration that Yuji Itadori is finally dead and he can, be reborn into the world, but he then realizes Yuji is actually still alive and throws a tantrum like a 4-year-old. Maru then says, "Let's get started," meaning he's going to be using his harmony technique in tandem with Mahito and Yuji in some way to stop cursed spirits from being born. What's very interesting about this is we have absolutely no idea what the genuine, actual specifics of Maru and Cross's technique are yet, so we can't really theory craft on how he's going to achieve this, but we can speculate about the end result. Like Yuki Tsukumo says, there are two ways we can eliminate cursed spirits. Option 1, remove all cursed energy from the citizens of Japan, making them all like Toji and Maki. And option 2, teach everybody how to control cursed energy so it doesn't leak off them. Both of these options seemed equally impossible back in the day, and to be honest, I still think option 1 is very unlikely, because I think that would severely limit Jujutsu Kaisen's future as a story. I mean, let's look at this objectively, okay? Shueisha's big moneymakers all kind of just came crashing down at once. JJK ended, MHA ended, Demon Slayer ended, and 2 of the big 3 have been done for quite some time. They needed something to, fill the gap until Kagurabachi's anime could release and inevitably dominate the industry. Now, based on Gege's own statement about how he was actually the one who was asked to make a sequel, and how he even admitted Modulo could open the door for more JJK projects in the future, leads me to believe that Modulo is effectively a test run. They just wanted to see if JJK was a viable option to be the next Dragon Ball, a series they can milk for all time because, like it or not, JJK is undoubtedly the biggest money printer of recent times for that industry. And based on the fact that Modulo quickly became the top 1 shonen series in terms of current weekly sales, I think it's safe to say we are definitely going to be getting more JJK after Modulo. Gege clearly enjoys writing it, he doesn't have to do the art, Shueisha gets their bag, and everybody stays happy. It's literally the only outcome that makes sense because it's such a big win-win. There's no reason not to do it. This is why option 1 of removing cursed energy entirely kind of limits JJK's future potential. However, option 2 only enhances it and makes another JJK series set after Modulo even more likely, because if everybody learns to control cursed energy, then suddenly everyone on planet Earth has the potential to be a Jujutsu sorcerer, which is a very exciting prospect. Also, I guess Maru's species are literally living proof that a society without cursed spirits that can all control their cursed energy is totally possible, so I think we are definitely leaning in that direction. But again, all of this is obviously just speculation. Anyway, I genuinely cannot wait to see what Gege has cooked up for us next week, and this for me was undoubtedly one of the best JJK chapters ever written, because after such a long time of feeling, just slightly dissatisfied, everything in JJK is finally starting to come full circle. We just had to be patient and let the dude cook. Also, Dabura top 1, sorry. Yeah, as always, like the video, subscribe to the channel, check out the membership options, and subscribe to my weekly chapter review channel as well. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in a bit.